Hey there everyone, thank you so much for being here and thank you so much for watching. I have recently switched my home lab from VMware to Proxmox for various reasons, and I have used to rely on Synology's Active Backup for Business to backup VMs to my NAS. And since this app doesn't, at least yet, support Proxmox, I will show you how to install Proxmox Backup Server as a VM on your Synology NAS. Now, you don't have to do it, and you can just mount an NFS share, for example, and backup to it, but using Proxmox Backup Server gives you a lot of advantages. For example, deduplication. You can actually save space using Proxmox Backup Server. Another major advantage for me is being able to do file level restores instead of having to restore an entire VM and grabbing files from it. There are a lot of other advantages, but these are the two that I have found most impactful. So without any further ado, let's go over to the computer and start working. Alright guys, we are at the computer, and just before we get started, a few things I want to say. The first is that this process might look a bit more difficult than it really is. Don't get discouraged, just follow along and you will get it. It really isn't that difficult, trust me. Second thing, in order to get to my desired end result, I used and cross-referenced several information sources online. I'm a big believer in giving credit to people when they deserve it, so every information source I've used will be linked in the description of this video. These guys made a tremendous work, they shared it with the community, and they should get credit, and I'm happy to give it. The last thing, throughout this video I might, instead of saying Proxmox Backup Server, I will say just PBS in order to get my life a bit easier in this video. So, enough intro, let's get started. Alright, so if you're installing Proxmox Backup Server, I understand that you probably don't have a problem getting to the ISO file. Just open up your favorite web search provider, search for Proxmox Backup Server. The first result will take you right here. Download the ISO. Here it is, Proxmox Backup Server. Download the ISO and then upload it to a shared folder on your Synology NAS. Of course, I've already done it. So, if that's the case, let's go to our Synology NAS and we launch our virtual machine manager. Go to virtual machine and create a Linux virtual machine. Click on next. Next. Let's name our virtual machine PBS demo. Give it 2 CPUs and maybe 4 gigs of RAM. Click on next. Let's give our virtual machine operating system drive 32 gigs of storage, virtio, space reclamation. That's great. Click on next. At this point I'm still not worrying about the data drive, not just yet. You decide what network you want this virtual machine to reside in, and of course virtio will be the model of our NIC. Click OK, that's great. Click on next. Now select the ISO of the Proxmox Backup Server that you've downloaded, and here is mine. Change it to UEFI. Auto start as you see fit. I'm choosing last state. Click on next. Next. Power on the virtual machine after creation, because why not? And done. And at this point we have completed our ISO download and our virtual machine creation. So that's a great milestone in this process. Let's go ahead and wait for our virtual machine to really come online, because we will launch the actual installation process. Let's try to click on connect, and indeed that's our installation wizard. Let's select graphical, click on enter. Alright, let's click on agree to the EULA. Select our storage drive, we don't have any other option. let's select ext4 because that's good enough for us. Click on next. Select a password. That will be the password to the default root account. So make sure you hold on to this password. Let's select a valid email address. Sure. Now, you should choose a static IP address for your Proxmox backup server. Now, for me, that will be 192.168.1.5. Make sure your gateway is right and your DNS servers according to your network settings. For me, these are exactly the settings that I would like the virtual machine to have. So let's click on next. And automatically reboot, that's checkboxed by default, that's great. Click on install and we are launching the actual Proxmox backup server operating system on our virtual machine. I'm going to pause the recording right here and I'm going to resume it once this process is complete. Alright guys, so the installation is complete and the virtual machine is now rebooting. And at this point, it's a good thing for me to mention. You're probably asking yourself, all right, so the installation completed and now you're going to launch the web interface. What are you going to do about the data disk, the actual space backups are going to be stored on? Well, there's two options for us actually to choose from. First option is to just shut down the virtual machine, add another hard drive in the capacity that you wish, and then configure the hard drive in PBS, and that will be the much easier choice. The disadvantage is that the backups that you're going to create on this hard drive are not going to be visible or browsable in Synology DSM. So what I'm going to do, the route I'm going to take here, is I'm going to actually create a data disk by mounting an NFS share. That's actually a shared folder on my Synology NAS. It's a bit harder to configure compared to the first option, but the big advantage here is that the backups that I'm going to create are going to be browsable in Synology DSM. And of course, if something happens to my PBS server, I can just spin up a new virtual machine, mount the NFS again, and the backups are just usable on the new server. So that's the route I'm going to take, and actually the virtual machine is already launched, so it's time to browse to our web interface. Let's open up a new tab and type the IP address that we have given during the setup wizard. So that's our IP address. Sorry, I forgot that it needs to be :8007 and of course HTTPS. And let's click on advanced and continue. So the username we are going to log in with is root, and the password is the password that you have specified in the setup process. All right, let's click on login, and we can just see that our installation was successful because we do have the web interface. So what I would do right now is just launch the shell, and I'm going to start to lay the bricks for NFS mount, and actually all the commands that I'm going to type are also going to be mentioned in the description of this video. So the first command will be making a directory onto which we will mount our shared folder. And now we are going to do chown for the user that we are going to create in our PBS. And we are going to do some permissive permissions on this directory. Now, I know that the second thing that I want to do is also in the shell, but this will require a reboot afterwards. So this is why I'm doing this step now. I'm going to launch a script made by someone called, I think, Titech, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And of course, a link to his website is going to be in the description of this video. This guy created amazing scripts for Proxmox and also Proxmox Backup Server. Things that it would take you about 30 or 40 minutes of manual grunt work. this guy is doing automatically. I do recommend that you launch this script. It does wonders. So this is the script. Again, the command will be in the description of this video. I'm going to start, so click on yes. Change the server sources, yes. Disable PBS Enterprise Repository. Again, we don't have a subscription, so yes. Enable no subscription repository, indeed. This, do you want to add the PB test repository? I'm choosing to not. Disable the subscription neg, oh yes. And of course, okay. Do you want to update Proxmox? And I do recommend that you do. Alright, so we have launched the script. This will take, according to the amount of updates the server needs to install. This can take anywhere from 2, 3, 4 minutes to 10, 15 minutes. Just be patient. It's not stuck. It's working. Give it time. I'm going to pause the recording right here and I'm going to resume it once the script has finished. Alright, so the script is complete, and during the script process we've updated our PBS. So do we want to reboot? Again, very recommended, so click on yes. While the server is rebooting, we'll go to our Synology DSM because we do want to create a shared folder to hold our backup data. We are going to mount this folder via NFS. Now, I already have a shared folder I want to use, but if you do not and you want to create one, you'll do it in the control panel, shared folder, and create new. I already have a shared folder, so I'm going to use that. The most important thing that you need to configure on your shared folder on your Synology NAS is NFS permissions. If you have nothing here, then you will click on create. I already have some permissions, so let me click on edit mine. Hostname or IP, this will be either individual hosts that you want to be able to connect or mount to the NFS, to the shared folder via NFS. I have specified the subnet of my management VLAN. Everything else just leave as default. The only thing that I recommend that you do change is to check this checkbox, allow users to access mounted subfolders, because in my specific case, I'm actually going to mount to a subfolder on my shared folder. If you're not going to do it like that, then don't worry about it. Alright, so in our shared folder, if we'll go to File Station, this is my shared folder. I'll create a new folder, let's call it PBS Demo. And I'm going to actually mount directly to this shared folder. Now, at this point, I believe that our PBS server has already finished its reboot process, and indeed it's back online. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to go back to our shell, and we are going to type a command to actually mount the shared folder we have created to our Linux operating system. And of course, the command I'm using is going to be listed in the description of this video. Just change the IP address or the location of the names of your shared folder as you see fit. This is the IP address of my Synology NAS. Volume 1 is my data volume. Proxmox is the name of the shared folder, and PBS demo is the name of the subfolder. Now, this is case sensitive, keep that in mind. So I'm going to click enter. Next command will tell the Linux operating system to actually go ahead and mount the shared folder according to the command that we've typed before. That's great. This command will reload the daemon services. And even though we already launched this command, the chmod command, I find that as a safety measure to launch it again after the mount has been done. And now it's time to create a local user account on our PBS server, and this account will be used to actually add the PBS server to our Proxmox virtual hosts. Now, in the previous commands, one of our previous commands, sorry, I'm going to type it again without launching it. We've done chown to a user backup : backup. This is exactly the name of the user account I'm now going to create in PBS. So we'll go into access control, user management, add, and username will be backup. Realm, we don't have any other realm. Password, give your user a password. But the username must be identical to the username in the command that I've showed you before. And click on add. And now that we have our user ready, we'll need to give this user permissions so that it will be able to do stuff on our PBS server. So we'll go to permissions, click on add, user permissions. Path will be, I'm choosing the slash because I do want these permissions to be on entire server. I know that I can narrow it down to data store. I'm aware. For me, this sometimes caused an issue. I don't know why. I'm doing it from the top level. User will be backup PBS and the role will be data store admin. And I do want to propagate to every other, all the data stores, sorry. Let's click on add. So we got our user account and we gave it permissions. And now we can go and actually add our data store, which is in reality a shared folder mounted via NFS. So in data store, click on add data store. Name, let's call it Synology. NFS. Backing path will actually be the folder that we have created in the beginning of this video, mnt/Synology. Everything else, prune options, everything else I'm not even going to touch here. I'm going to make my settings on the backup job itself. Let's click on add. This can take anywhere from 2-3 minutes because it does create several subfolders and files. Alright, so it's done. And now actually we can click on our data store. Alright, we can see that it's online. So what we are able to do right now is actually go to our Proxmox virtual hosts and add this PBS that we've just installed as a backup source. Alright, the way we do it is in our data center view, we'll go to storage, add Proxmox Backup Server. ID, let's call it PBS demo. Server will be the IP address of the virtual machine, of our PBS virtual machine. Username, we'll go with backup at PBS. Password is the password that we gave this user account. Data store will be, Synology NFS. It needs to be exactly the same name as we gave our data store. And while we're here, we'll go to dashboard, show fingerprint and copy, because the next thing we will need to give is the fingerprint. So let's paste it here and click on add. And just like that, we have added our PBS demo to our Proxmox hosts. And just like that, we can now start creating backup jobs to our PBS demo instance. The way we do it is we'll go to, on our data center view, to backup, and we'll actually create a backup a backup job to verify. Let's click on add, storage, select our PBS demo, schedule, let's select something, I'm going to delete it afterwards. Let's select our HAVM machine, that's my home assistant actually. Retention, I'm going to keep last 5. Click on create, and now just to make sure I want to start to back up my virtual machine. But one more thing that I would like to do just before that as good measure, I'm going to go to my PBS, administration, and reboot. Alright guys, so the virtual machine came back online, and I just now realized that there's a step I forgot to do before launching the TTEC script, sorry. If we go to back to our virtual machine manager, we can see that our virtual machine is running, but we don't have the Synology virtual machine guest tools installed. So we'll launch back our PBS web interface and go to the shell and type this command and click enter and yes. And if this command doesn't work for you before launching the TTEC script, sorry, definitely try to launch it after. It will work. Alright, so this will take just a minute or two. I am going to reboot the PBS one more time after that, and then we'll start to do our backup job. Alright, so the script is finished. The command is finished, and I've rebooted my PBS. And the way I can tell if it worked or not, if I'll go back to my Synology DSM in my virtual machine manager, now I see the IP address of my PBS demo. This means that the guest tools are working. Alright, so let's go to our Proxmox virtual hosts. We've created a backup job, and now let's try to run it. Click on yes. The backup is launched. Let's verify it is running, and it is definitely running. So instead of waiting, let me close out of here, and let me just show you with my real PBS, not the PBS demo, what's the difference between regular NFS mounts and backing up to regular NFS mounts and using PBS as your backup mechanism. If I'll go to the backups folder right here, I can see backups I've already taken of virtual machines. And let's select a virtual machine, for example. We see that we have file restore instead of just virtual machine restore. And if I'll click on file restore, I will open up this plus button right here. And these are actually the real partitions on my virtual machine. This, for example, is the C drive. This is the D drive. And I can actually go and recover individual files from this virtual machine. And I can, for example, select a file and download it directly to my computer. And of course, the second option is to just restore the complete virtual machine. Now, just as comparison, I do have my Synology NAS mounted with a regular NFS mount, and I do have some backups on this Synology mount. But if I'll click one of the virtual machine backups, I only have restore and show configuration. I do not have file level restore. So that's the actual difference. And if I'll go and log in to my so-called production PBS, even though it's not been alive all that long, I can already see that I do get deduplication factor of 16, and this will continue to grow the more backups I do to it. So just by using PBS, I'm saving space
on my Synology NAS. So guys, I hope you like this video, and I hope it really was not as difficult as it looks, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye everyone, take care.